Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's episode of Exo Metaverse Lightnet with Jamye Price here, one of the Lyran goddesses, wisdom carriers here in Sedona. She's such a contribution to the world. She is a teacher, a healer, a writer. She's written books about light language. She's traveled the world to teach what she knows about a special healing technique she's created, crystalline soul healing. She's really supporting people to reach that next step in your evolution so that you can shine bright. She also has an incredible Cosmic Ascension Deck that she's published, and she's constantly sharing her wisdom every month on her YouTube channel, where she goes over energy, she goes over channels. She's also a channel, she's been on Gaia, and she's gonna talk a little bit about that. She's gonna do a live transmission tonight as well in light language, which is going to be such a treat. We're going to talk about time. We're going to talk about change. She always says, and change, and change, and change, because really that's going to be where our Jedi strength lies in the coming years. I mean, we think that, wow, we've already been through all the change we can handle, but it's always good to know that that we can navigate through that. And she's going to talk quite a bit about that tonight. So before we do that, I want to invite everybody that's joining us live in the broadcast to jump in the Hangout rooms, because we are going to have breakout sessions that are really fun to join. So you can do that at exometaverse.org/hangout, and that's going to get you right into the Zoom room. I'm also going to share my screen and do a few announcements. We had an incredible session last week with Suzanne Worthley, and I wanted to share some of the results from the collective intelligence surveys. As many of you know, LightNet and Exo Metaverse is a citizen science platform, right? We are the Gaia of doing, right, instead of watching, and we encourage you guys all to really get in your lives and try this stuff out. We are the online Hogwarts. We're the Wikipedia, sharing all this information. We're building some really powerful tools. So when we asked last week, have you ever communicated with someone across the veil? We had a lot of people answering their higher self, loved ones, angels, galactics, God, and a few people hadn't yet. But I thought this was so interesting because we asked people, did someone teach you how to do it? And many people said that they did it since they were a child and it just came naturally. And then other people just said it just tried it and it worked. So this is a really, really, really powerful message to all of us. You know, we hear about light language, we hear about channeling. Just try it. It's like the Nike ad. Instead of just do it, just try it, right? Because we can't leave this in theory anymore, right? So it's just about carving those minutes away from your day to try this stuff. This is also interesting. The messages that came through for people were coming through dreams. They were coming through synchronicities. And our co-founder Daniel's really big on dreams and really big on remembering those. So just do what you can to set your intention before you go to bed to remember those dreams, because they come through. And then a lot of people said that they felt the communication in their body as a feeling. So that was really powerful too. So again, you can find on our blog exometaverse/news and go to the recent one, but there's all these incredible shares of all these wisdom of how to actually communicate with your higher self, with cosmics, with angels, with other people across the veil, and it's just so powerful. Again, tonight, we are going to be doing another collective intelligence. So if you haven't filled it out, if you feel like you have a cosmic part to you, a cosmic self, which we're going to talk about a lot tonight, you can go to exometaverse.org/week30 and fill that in. Also want to report that we had another very successful spoon bending party here in Sedona and online for our members. We had 4 more people doing high school bending. That's bending the buckle, which is very hard to do. So again, we had a 13-month through a year-old baby who we're not sure might have done graduate school bending without touching. He said, hot, 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 and he started clapping. So that was all he said the whole night. So we're going to try that again with him next month, and we hope that you join us at exometaverse.org/spoonbending. It comes with your membership. So I also want to remind you that we have a very, very, very big event, Fire the Grid. It's a massive meditation around the world on February 21st. And the idea is to come together and just be in joy. If you want to cook, if you want to dance, if you want to sing, whatever you want to do, the important thing, this was channeled by Galactics to do this. They've gotten 20 million people in the past. Exo Metaverse Lightwork, Greg Heller, our beloved programmer, worked on this globe to track and everybody signing up. So firethegrid.world, will share the links in the chat as well. I also want to thank our new broadcast partner, Neil at Portal to Ascension, and all that he's doing. He's such a bright light. He's putting out so much massive content for this world and for this esoteric stuff that is now becoming completely mainstream, and people are desperate for this information. We're so grateful for all that you're doing, Neil. Also for Alan, of course, from New Realities. He's going to be coming to Sedona. He just got back from Conscious Life Expo, so we look forward to talking to him. And thank you, Awareness Ascending, for co-broadcasting with us as well, and Sedona Quantum Consciousness for being our sponsor tonight. So now I'd like to get on with the heart of the matter tonight. Again, you can find out more about Jamye's work at jamyeprice.com. So welcome, Jamye. It's great to have you here tonight.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Okay.
So close, yet so far. Here we are, both in Sedona.
Exactly. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to first start, first, one thing that we do every time, and I don't have my timer tonight, because we just spend 1 minute with our eyes closed before we start to tap into the field. And guys would be surprised how incredible 1 minute can feel and be when we're just tuned in. So we're going to do that for 1 minute, and then we're going to kick off the interview. So here we go. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So, Jamye, the first question I had for you is about this change. And one of the things you mentioned in your February energy report is this idea of shifting back into neutral and actually letting the timing of things not stress you out and things like that. So why don't you talk about kind of what you see ahead and how, give us some tools to manage things.
Yeah, boy, I have felt like such a broken record lately with, oh my gosh, it's been so intense. But it really has been such an accelerated time of change. And this whole past year has felt like it's really been bringing us into a level of deepening that is now preparing us for what's intensifying right now, which is like constant change. And this is really, just like you said, this is the time that we've been waiting for. This is the time that we've been preparing for. This is the time where the awakenings that are happening and the deepening that's happening is expanding in such a way that our ability to stay neutral and be open to full connection, this is what's so different now, where things were a little more personal and theoretical and then practical. Now it feels like all practical. Like, it is time to apply it into everything and really be that change, walk that talk, and see how deep you can keep going with it. And the thing that I find so interesting is how the collective energies have been in these past couple of years have really been bringing us into a lot more awareness of our boundaries and awareness of our own energy flowing into our lives. And for years, like well over 5 years consistently, Areon's been talking about get your energy into your life, live it boldly, get your energy in there, actively do that. And this is really that time. So being neutral is the thing that helps keep you open to connection. And this is what's really coming to a new level right now is the loving ones, the light workers, those that are the star seeds that understand that this is about connection. We experience the separation, and that's a real experience here in linearity, but we all know it's not the whole story. And so for those that understand the connection on a deeper level, it's that time to really have that neutral strength so that we can live it, so that we can stay connected to what might seem opposite, to what might not seem like a spiritual experience, and make it one, because that neutrality allows the transformation to happen. So whether it's at work or a store or with family or a joyous time or a challenging time, that as soon as we can, we're getting back to that neutrality so that we can hold that space of connection, which is just another word for love. It's another word for awareness or consciousness. And that's what lets people learn through that biggest part of each of us, which is our subtle field, so that the information that's getting picked up is that depth of connection and that depth of what true empowerment is. And it's not always obvious in the moment. But through all these ups and downs, we're really being challenged to let the emotions flow, whether they're blissful ones or they're challenging ones in a moment, and then keep bringing that back to that power of neutrality that's mimicked in the atomic structure. That neutral neutron, which is the largest structure, lets those two opposites, what's positive and negative, connect, and those two sides of one coin. So what this time has really brought to task is being able to hold that space of love, that space of neutrality in any situation, even though it's going to be up and down as you're just living life. That's what helps people to change. And when I was working in corporate, this was such great exercise. And I really loved having those opportunities of seeing how it really applied. And that's where it really gets juicy, is when you see it in everyday life and eventually you start to see more and more effects of it, which is why I love you that you started with that recognition that all of this is very natural to us, whether it's something like intuition or something that seems odder, like channeling or light language. This is all very natural to us, and we're all going to do it in different ways. But as you keep bringing that totality of yourself in that strong connective way into everything that you're doing, that awareness, you are changing in ways that have a bigger impact because it's what's communicating through your subtle field.
Yeah, wow, that's so powerful. Because in those choice moments, like you talk about this wise trust, the inner power, and you talk a lot about soothing, like soothing when you're feeling disempowered, or soothing when you feel like you're going to victimhood. And every little moment that you're able to choose that, that loving awareness is like it makes it more smooth going forward? How does it work? Like,
Yes. It is like the nurturing that ideally we would have as a child. And then when you're soothing yourself and you're able to maintain that composure in the moment, that's when the friction that would normally happen, because if we're having a challenge, we'll either contract or we'll push out in an extreme. And of course, there's variations all through that. But when you can soothe in that moment, you will stay much more balanced and you'll stay much more open. And sometimes it's as simple as breathing, taking a quick walk outside, 2 minutes, even longer if you can. Sometimes it's the self-talk. And you don't have to get to that absolute bliss from 0 to 60. You just have to soften just a little bit so that you can relax. And so sometimes the best that I can do, and it actually helps, is, whew, this too shall pass. The benefit of linear time, this too shall pass. Change is always good. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. This is life helping me. Just anything that can soothe into a little bit more softness and groundedness so that you can hold your power in that moment. And that may not feel powerful, but you're actually holding your power. Like, you might still be feeling confused or what's going to happen. I don't know how the outcome's going to be. You may still be feeling that. It's an unknown, but it soothes you into that depth of your power that is in there. It's in everyone. Just like your story of the child that was like 13 months old and was recognizing what was happening, and with that amount of verbalization was participating. Like, there's such a deep wisdom within each of us, and it looks different at different stages. There's different parts of it, but when you tap into that wisdom, and this is what Areon has been talking about so much, and I love that this year started with inner power and wise trust, is what we are doing. The whole process of ascension and the evolution that we're going through is anchoring that higher self, or that higher frequency self, the multidimensional self, the nonlinear self, into the human experience, so that you can be in that moment of challenge. It's obviously easier when things are wonderful, but you could be in that moment of challenge, and even with the discomfort, you can still touch that part of the self that's like, all is well. And I know that. I know it, even though I don't understand it right in the moment. It's so important. And I just had one of these recently where I had a shocking kind of experience with someone, and I stayed so calm, it actually surprised me. And it was just the simple, all change is good change. This is an opportunity here. So it's not always something that immediately makes you feel blissful or 100% calm, but if you can just get a little bit more softness, a little bit more neutrality in a moment, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, that's so true, because you don't know in time whether that thing that you thought was horrible or even amazing is going to be in a week from now, or a month from now. There's fables that talk about that. You're crying and then you realize that that was the best thing. So it's like, you say, wait a minute, this is shocking, but
Yes.
it might not be bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when you let those authentic emotions flow, the authentic thoughts flow, that's that process of transformation that opens you up to those new potentials just more easily, because you're letting things flow instead of just going into contraction or pushing against. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had this theory that that this isn't like uh equal probability and equal, like this, whatever we're in, this experience is rigged in our favor. I am sure of it. So if you're constricting, and someone's like, Zenka, you're like this. And I'm like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. So it's like, if you let go in those times when you can't deal with it, the universe will default to in your favor.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, it's not just like, it's like not half and half, like good and bad. There's something, if you let it, will be in your favor. So that's so great. And I'm reminded by Nani Hanna, one of our incredible members from here in Sedona. She's like, we're not crazy, we're extraordinary. And you're talking about letting a little bit go more of our human self so we can tap into, because we're not just this one incarnation, right? We don't even tap this before, so it's like, how do you let that in? And so talk about that. How do you let your cosmic self be a part of this human experience? How has that been for you?
Yeah. So it comes in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that I have found most effective is, and so simple, because this really is so natural to us. And one of my favorite ways is appreciating the beauty in the small things. And sometimes it's even just for a moment. And sometimes I use this when I'm really in a positive place and I'm wanting to amplify that. And sometimes I use this when I'm in a negative place and I want to transform that. So I love finding those small things, like the way the sun hits something, or a sound, or a thought. Like, I love using my imagination to go to happy places, where you can connect with a flow of nature or something elemental, something that's just a part of who we are, a tree, the flow of water. Those kinds of things really tap me into that more infinite flow. And certainly getting outside, especially when you can see the stars, when you can connect with the planets, or just even seeing like the moon in the daytime. I love using that to kind of take that moment and connect into my broader self, because we get so conditioned in our physical senses that we're this little thing, and then there's that big sky that's out there, but we're part of that as well. And when we start weaving in those bigger, broader, and more collective aspects of life, we just start to realize in those quick moments of timelessness, and of course you can do those in longer moments too. Meditation is such a great example of that. But those quick moments of timelessness even will help tune you into, there's so much more. There's so much more to us. And the way that Areon originally taught me about that was the subatomic structure, that everything that is, we are that same formula. And part of that is, it's about 99% space and about 1% matter. And that's the same thing that we are. We are about 1% physical matter, and we are 99% non-physical. So weaving that connection in those small times, when those short times where you're connecting to something broader, is one way that I do that. And certainly the things like meditation or creativity, that is such a great way to tune into that broader self. And all of the ways that were mentioned in the survey that you started with, this is so natural to us. It's just a matter of starting to condition ourselves that we can be grounded and participating in life, fully human. But what that really means is so much more than what we've been taught. it is that broader collective nature. It is this ability to tap into wisdom and to navigate things in a way that becomes a dance with life instead of just, how can I figure this out?
Yeah, definitely. We are going to be going into breakout groups soon. So if you're watching this live on one of our channels, go ahead and get into the Zoom by going to exometaverse.org/hangout. It'll give you the Zoom right away. And yeah, so it's interesting that you're saying about nature, because nature is that direct feedback loop. Everybody's the direct feedback loop. Your neighbor, the person into the grocery store, they are all feedback loops. They're all channeling the universe to you at all times. But nature is like the powerhouse, right? And it's interesting because I'm going to share the results of our survey. 100% of the people do feel like they have a cosmic self. That would make sense on our call. You guys are the pioneers, and we're all recognizing that. We probably all are that way, right? So how is it that you tune into your cosmic self? Meditation. Actually, earlier when I looked at this today, it was being in nature. And that was the first thing, Jamie, that you mentioned to me in our pre-call. You're like, nature. I was like, really? And you're like, yeah. And it was showing up as number one for a long time. Now it's meditation. So yeah, it would make sense that when we calm our senses in our normal world, we'd have that. And then dreams is coming up. Being under the stars is huge, right? I love having that star app on your phone and then seeing like, oh my God, I was looking at this or that, like, wow. Yeah, automatic writing, creative outlets, as you mentioned, clairaudience, energy healing technology. Again, you can see these results by going to exometaverse/week 30-results, and you can find out there's all these nuggets of wisdom that people are offering. So I want to we're going to go into breakout groups in 10 minutes, but I wanted to go ahead and open it up to your channel right now in light language. So because I know that no one's going to want to miss that. So why don't we do that? Why don't you see what the Lyran Council of Time has to say? And we'll actually be diving more into who they are and all that stuff later. But go ahead and see what you want to do with that.
Yeah. So it feels like very connected to what we just started talking about, which is expanding to that next level, because I know this is not new for anybody here, but expanding into our cosmic nature and anchoring that here, weaving that with the human experience. Because to me, that's what's so exciting, and why I love nature so much. And you do not have to live in beautiful Sedona to be in nature. Sometimes even just the imagining of nature. Like I said, sometimes I'll go to a happy place that is someplace else, even besides Sedona. But being able to recognize that here in this human experience, we are so much more than that. We are how the universe creates through human form. That's not the only way to create, even here on Earth, but we are the vehicle of life. We are the vehicle of creation in human form. So I want to do a transmission to help us open up to that next layer of our cosmic self, and to really anchor that and bring that practically here to Earth. Good. So everyone just take a nice relaxing breath. And the light language, for those of you that are not familiar with it, is always coming through as in its nonlinear form. And your higher self, your nonlinear self, is always activating and releasing specifically for you. So it is like a quantum packet of information. And then as it meets your awareness, your higher self does the final choosing of what will release and activate. But of course, your human self has some input there too. So just see what you notice while I'm doing the transmission, any kind of physical sensations, any kind of psychic impressions, thoughts or emotions that arise. That is just your body's reaction, whether that's your mental, emotional, or physical body responding to the frequencies. So take a nice, relaxing breath. And if you like, you can repeat this intention after me. I now release all that is blocking my highest good. I activate and understand all that I need to move forward on my path with grace and ease. Sanstayrumat branut orthektiarut uam, brana chairut urut sanshukrorum, brarur harm at briaratakrel rimnet yam. So Shairumat brerut ugrul rimet un. Dam stayarut sesteret ektiarut u kur mhet iret ta sur hesturamat yam. Samstær matstanek erut urmem, kral rmester ut chand tairut ukuret ka Somstær makten ustair. Stan urnaham ekruret kal urmekter ananster ut char and ka San stærut uam. Kan sterut grol regmet im nam orem etcharat such grel in et at knen such am krandat irum hat at san steret al ileli akterana ken sterut uruksam ganda kanuda Sam astayarut urut al arma tan stur met sukrum kam brandat nadat utsam. Hinit gmendat im now. Gal aranehd num staurut am ganat iret satchaur ut krorum a gal so himet au. Sen sterut urur al ililim a. Dan stur sukrarub an chataknind, kan steret sukrgorgam and kram koramt aurak. Kram hakniend krel knochrim derel in krim hat unokdeed grand gran naur knandet il gnendir urgem behrende at. This is ukrum behbt au. Henj ukrum hat urgem kend ukrum hat. Is knendet urgem hat I rendat lal urmekdelt Som stauret anand sukurma, dam brandat knen urnehet urumba, kral krenet urnehet suchum, huim et knen duhrimde et uremle and at knen dot urme et urgonot ham de krend at uno urid am. Hisukurke eshu. Sa stauret. Kan stum at san chakrayarut kal ansharik nin secharut und brannhatanan shayr grel rama ad sach grand hat im. So het ansha jan gror bat nansa chair grand hat irum atjoret aur at kneer nandat il reneht tumsa. Gane Handarum anshurum sach and kan grandat erum abrandat iam. Kal ermat grand harmtant am chand krur het grandat im san stairut sum agrandat al gnandat im. Einmal son char and ram hagnaran chon adam sanj derum. Gral granand erum abrand satcher nandat erum prmepet in grund und arale. Good, good. Take another relaxing breath. And if you like, you can gently rub your hands together. You can rub your hands on your legs. Just helps bring you into a more active brain state. Good. 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 So I want to share just a little of what I was getting during that transmission. And because your higher self is activating the transmission for you, you might get something different. So some of the things that I was feeling, there was a lot that was going on to help open up the whole upper body, the whole back of the upper chest and the front, like around the clavicles. And I was feeling this, it was like having an openness to be able to almost even breathe more strongly. It was really interesting how it was affecting the physicality. And there was a lot of activation happening with the heart. There was a time where my hands were moving really strongly, and it felt like an expansion of the flow of energy, how it can move from right to left, so that there's a broader flow of being able to utilize that full flow. There was a time where I was feeling a lot going on to soften the mind so that you're able to see the things that aren't obvious. And the way that I originally wanted to say that was to see the things that aren't there. But this is the thing with recognizing your intuitive senses and recognizing how sometimes subtle information will flow, that sometimes you genuinely are seeing things that aren't there. Like sometimes I've been in cities and I'll see a different time overlaid in the actual place where I am, where I can see like a brick building and I'm seeing something older. So softening that mind to be able to see the things that are layered in there so that you're starting to recognize how all time is being experienced and being echoed wherever you are. Then there was also this really playful time where I was feeling like a playful reminder of all of the different suits that we've worn, like sometimes like the traditional thing that we'll see on the sci-fi channels will have like a silvery jumpsuit or a metallic jumpsuit that all of those things, whether it's more human clothes or things that might seem so unusual to us, that we've worn so many different suits, so many different lifetimes that we've had. So then towards the end, there was this really sweet and loving galactic fairy elemental energy to just kind of bring that back into the joy of the heart. So that was really nice. Excellent.
Wow, that was so super special. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was so much energy. My Zoom totally shut down. Then I was like, oh wow, we just lost everything. But then thank God I made you co-host, so it's still going. And then I got everything back up. It was still going, which was great. And then I felt so like such a massive wave of energy. I like almost couldn't even stand up. It was like, wow. So it's really interesting how much energy you're pulling through for the group. And thank you so much for your transmission there. I'd like everybody to share in the chat what came up for them. What did they feel? What did you feel? Did you feel anything in your body? Did something come to your mind? Did you learn something? I'd also encourage you, if you're on YouTube, to type it into the chat, because this is, I am so in my head, it's ridiculous. So this is part of this like unwinding, like feeling the feels, like feel our body, because it's rich of information. It's like you just said, it's like you're in the city, it's like, okay, wait a minute. What is the unseen here? What is the feeling? What is the knowing? What is the intuition? What messages am I getting? What signs am I seeing? Right? So all those things, and this is such, we're in this period, when we talk about even the spoon bending, it's like some people are like, you don't have to understand it with your head. Your mind is never going to understand this. And so it's almost like light language, like it's something, and I wish I hadn't closed my eyes, because when I opened them, I saw you doing all this stuff with your hands, which was so rich. It was so rich in communication. So I encourage you guys to go back to this and actually watch her doing it. You know what I mean? So, wow, that was such a great experience. So we're going to go into breakout groups right now. For anybody who has not joined our breakout groups before, we're going to put you in breakout groups. We're going to move everybody around a little bit. So don't start right when we go. You're going to be able to talk about your experience with light language, or what experience you just had. And then you can also talk about your contact experience, or how you deal with change, right? So each person, there's going to be a timekeeper designated in each group. So decide who that is. Divide 20 minutes up by how many people are in the room. Again, I'll be shuffling people around at first. And then you just have the floor for that time. If you want to share something, if you want feedback, you can ask for it. Otherwise, it's just a chance for you to share, to get support, to be in community. And if you don't want to be in the great big breakout groups, that's fine too. You can stay in the main room. So Jamie is going to stay here. Don't join the breakout group, Jamie. And if you guys don't want to, that's fine. But just remember, this is going to be recorded, so you're not going to miss anything. So here we go. So again, last chance for those on live. We're going to go ahead and go into breakout groups now. And if you don't want to go, just stay in the main room. And so let's talk more. We want to talk about your contact experiences, but let's start a little bit from, let's tell us about Lyrins. Tell us about who they are. Tell us about the Council of Time, and we'll start there.
Nice. So the lyrins are our ancient forebearers that began this track of the humanoid experience, and it is varied. You know, they eventually went out to other planets, so it's not like they just came here, but they are our original progenitors for this human experience. And as they started moving out, they went to a lot of different planets. Some of the ones that we're more familiar with that are part of our direct heritage are the Syrian, the Orions, the Pleiadians, they are the Vegans. They started this human track, and their big challenge was polarity, because this is all about polarity integration and connection, coming back to connection. So their big polarity was the masculine and the feminine energetic. So to either become very direct and action oriented, more of a masculine energetic, or to become much more intuitive, connective, more spiritually based, that was the feminine energetic. And so throughout all of these iterations, they have been reintegrating that through all of these, all of our experiences as well. So, and of course, we are our own ancestors. So the Lyrins at this time they have moved past that polarity, and there are different variations of them. There are some that are no longer in physical form. There are, according to my understanding, there are still some Lyrins that are in physical form. But Areon, the Lyran Council of Time that I work with, is no longer in physical form. They are part of my Lyran heritage, and I would say in like the around 2007-ish, 6, 7, something like that, was when I first recognized that I was Lyran, and it came in this weird way, which is such a great way for people to kind of deal with their intuition, kind of like we were just talking about. I was basically kind of doing it's something rote, which is a time where you often get a lot of information because you're just kind of zoned out, and bloop, stuff can flow in. And I remember all of a sudden I had this thought in my head, and it was like I was saying it to myself, I'm Lyran. And it was just so non sequitur. You know, I wasn't like trying to discover what galactic race I was from or something like that. It just boom, popped in. And then within days after that, I had a reading with someone, and one of the first things that they said was, "Oh, you're Lyran," and then they started talking about some of that, the stuff that they do. And one of the things that she said was they're the template builders, and I didn't understand what that was, but at the time, and I still didn't even recognize this back then, but I was creating crystalline soul healing just naturally by the way that I was working energetically and how my guides were teaching me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's a template. And so as I was learning different things and gathering that methodology, it eventually became obvious to me that it was a template. And so part of their reason for being here, Areon, the Lyran Council of Time, and part of why so many of us are opening up to more of our Lyran heritage, and we all have varied heritages, but it's because we're getting into some of that depth of the core of our separation, or the macro separation, as we are starting to create that connection. So it's a really interesting time, because that original Lyran challenge is coming up for um, resolution through us, and because we are at that point of our own evolution where that reintegration is kind of at the forefront for us, using both of those energetics so that we're using the full flow of creation. Oh,
Well,
oh, there you are.
Yeah, so wow, that's so interesting. What about them is like, what about is this Council of Time, and what about these templates? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when Areon first asked me to start channeling them directly, they identified themselves as the Lyran Council of Time. And they didn't have the name Areon. They actually gave me that name a little bit later. And I'm, I wasn't asking for a name. They created it. And I'll actually tell you that story. It's kind of cool. But the Lyran Council of Time, one of the things that they said to me when they asked me to channel them directly was, the reason we want you to channel us directly is because humanity is at a point in time now where our information can become more helpful, where they're on a trajectory of transformation, that as we start getting into the details of our subtle bridge, because they focus a lot on our thoughts and emotions, as we get into the details of our subtle bridge, that's when we really create that effective change within our own lives, which is what we're all here to do, live our own lives powerfully. Because as we do that, we can't help but ripple out that information of empowerment, of love, of potential. So that's why they came forward at that time. And being the Lyran Council of Time, part of what they talk about is that non-linearity, so that we are bridging the experience of linearity, and time is one way that we experience that linearity, and that we start weaving that in with the non-linear. So, for example, they'll talk about how that all time is occurring now. That's something that we've heard. But the one thing that they caution against is, don't just start with the broad statements like time is just an illusion, or time doesn't really exist. It's not that it's untrue. It's that we have to integrate the truth of what we're experiencing, and then add that next layer of truth, that next layer of truth. So part of their work is to help us bring in that practicality of our multidimensionality, our nonlinearity, and keep applying it into life. Just like the example that we gave earlier of being within a challenge, and when you can maintain your composure, whether it's deep breaths or soothing yourself in that moment into, I'm okay, change is good, this is an opportunity, that you're bridging that multidimensionality in a very practical way. And so that's what they're here to help us do. And even crystalline soul healing, just to bring it back to the templates that you were asking about, that template work is part of that as well, because everything that we as star seeds, as light workers, as people that are on a path of empowerment and self-mastery and more joy, ascension, evolution, what we are doing is integrating universal law into the physical. And so template work is another example of that, where the vastness or the multi-layeredness of whatever we are experiencing or what we are bringing into our present moment, that we're also able to weave in consciousness with some of those other layers of information that are there as well. So even template work is about bringing multidimensionality into linearity and letting those two continue to dance through us.
Well, you talk a lot about non-linear. Can you go through the basics for people? Like, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean in general? And what is it that we're not understanding about time?
Yeah, I love this topic because it becomes so fascinating and sometimes feels so simple, and then sometimes feels like it's so far away. So getting used to the non-linearity is something that takes a little bit of practice. Like, I love that meditation became a really strong one for the survey, because it's a time where we can more easily access some of our own non-linearity. So, for example, I'm sure many of you have had times where you were meditating and you felt like 20 minutes passed, but it was only 3, or vice versa. You felt like you were probably only meditating for about 5 minutes and it was actually 30 minutes. That when we can start to soften our grip on linearity, like every little second moving by, then we start to blend in that recognition and the consciousness, because all of this is about becoming more conscious with the things that we're experiencing, the things that we're doing, but the consciousness of how the past is right here in the present moment. Every experience you've had is right here in the present moment. Every experience through your ancestry, through the collective of humanity, through life on Earth. And for this group, that recognition that all of those experiences, even from other planets, is right here, right now. That's part of that non-linearity. And then you also bring into that the future that is right here in the present moment, that the potentials that you are creating that will manifest in the future are right here in the present moment. And that's why sometimes those simple things like softening in a moment where you want to contract, and if it is a moment of contraction, to just really embrace that, that lets that friction go, so that the natural flow of contraction and expansion that is constantly happening, even when we laugh or when we breathe, that you can be in that present moment and know that that is the experience, and yet its opposite is there as well. So this just helps us to keep softening into the next recognition that we are so much more than the linear experiences that we're having, than the physical experiences that we have, and the ways that we think that human life can be. And it's glorious. It's not that we have to avoid that. It's that we are expanding that and amplifying that and really deepening into the beauty and the empowerment of that. So the nonlinearity is the really important next step of us stepping into our recognition of our vastness, of our power, and of our connection. And that's where things get really important, because that connection is why, Zenka, for example, you were saying, I just know it's biased towards the positive. And the way that Areon says that is it's fail-safed towards love, because at the core of everything is connection. And that's what your nonlinearity is. It's letting you more consciously connect the past, the future, and the now. It's letting you consciously connect the separation into something that's recognized as similar. It's letting you connect those opposites, positive and negative. It's letting you connect the things that seem like they're a challenge into their new potential. So that nonlinearity becomes key because we're having to get used to the rules of the subtle realm, where here in the physical realm, our rules are action and control and manipulation. And I do not mean that in the negative sense, even though there's plenty of negativity out there with that. But if you want to take a step in physical, you have to move your body. You have to take that action. But the subtle realm rules are different. Things are not formed. And so it's your resonance, it's the totality of you that speaks to the subtle. And bringing that consciousness into your nonlinearity, especially when you can be neutral, that's where you can hold that broader power or that deeper divinity and wisdom that you already are, you always have been, and you always will be. That's where you can hold that in every situation. And in the positive ones, it's going to feel good. And there's going to be that neutrality there as well. And in the negative ones, the challenging ones, quote unquote negative, it's not going to feel as good every single time, but you're going to be maintaining that nonlinearity, that subtle self within that experience, and being able to navigate that transformation because it's constant. So the nonlinearity is really that big key of bridging the physical and the subtle, so that we learn those rules in a really practical and applicable way here, because it is so natural to us.
That's amazing. Yeah. And that's really what we've been learning, you guys, over the past couple hangouts, is this, that we are in this crux, right? Like that the lower chakras are the physical ones, then the heart's in the middle, and then the upper chakras are the subtle realms, right? And that's what we're moving into. And when you talk about time like that, it makes a lot of things open, because we've been talking about how we are connected to other people, right? And other beings. And we know that we can remote view, we know we can connect. So if we apply that same logic to time, it means that we are all time travelers, right? We can always connect back. And I met a hypnotist. It's like, oh, you want to improve your relationship with your son? You can actually go back to the past, do a do-over, bring that, do do-overs with him too. But then you can also, it's like as if everything is fluid, right? Because we're in a place of awareness, and we're hopefully moving toward always a more, knowing and more wise place of awareness. But that place of awareness includes this ability to access all information, your higher self and every other thing that's ever been, and all information across the possibilities of the future, the possibilities of what happened before. And we're still learning about the past. Like ancient aliens and dinosaurs were colorful, you know what I mean? It's like, so like in a practical way, and now we're into the non-physical. We're exploring the non-physical together, and that's what makes this kind of thing so exciting. And that's what makes these communities of pioneers. If you're here on this call, you are a pioneer. You are a forerunner. You are someone that's curious, that's experimenting in your life, that's figuring out these subtle things. Because you're right, we have to quiet our minds and open our hearts and open our minds to these ideas, to light language, to this idea of time, this idea of that being connected to everything around you. It's so very exciting. We're going to be bringing people back from the breakout groups I wanted to ask you, Jamie, one last thing. We always ask people to talk about their contact experience because we know that it's such an important thing for all of us to be able to talk about it with community and everything. So if you want to share one experience, maybe your craziest experience, or maybe your first experience, or one that's just resonating for you right now, of when you really felt connected, and how it was for you.
Mm. You know, they vary. So, Areon, for example, I've never had an experience where I felt like they were, they're in physical. I've had some contact experiences where I've awakened, like especially in Shasta, I've seen ships where my friend was there and they're like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?" And one time I was with a friend, we were both asleep, and I woke up. This is in Shasta, and all I did was just open my eyes, and I was laying there so still, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's two aliens in the room, I'm thinking. And one was very tall and one was very short. And I was just observing because I'm like, well, this is really weird, but they're over there. So I'm just gonna lay here and see what's going on. And I had not moved at all. And my friend jumps awake and she's like, "Who's here?" I'm like, "It's okay. You could just go back to sleep." And I just laid there for a little bit and then I went back to sleep. There was never any kind of specific contact in that actual one. But most of my experiences are more channeling experiences. They're more connecting in that mental kind of way. And sometimes I will have an experience of going someplace off world. Most times, though, it just feels like a conversation or information flowing through me. I did have this experience one time that was kind of funny. I was with a friend and we were asking some questions and I was channeling. And at, at the same time, it was two beings trying to speak through me, and my mouth could not move that way to it's like they had to make a choice. Either one talks or nobody talks, because it was like my mouth was in, this wasn't even light language, this was in English. It's like my mouth could not work that way. So it was pretty interesting.
So awesome. Yeah, I can already tell that your happy place is a place that I want to go to too. It's like, wow. So welcome everyone back from the breakout rooms. I also want to give a shout out to my co-founder, Daniel Refkan, who's here on the call. He's going to be having a baby in the end of the month or somewhere there about for Cosmic One. And Professor Paul, welcome. It's good to see you. Everyone, welcome. Sharon, my neighbors here as well. I want to share the screen a little bit before we go into questions. I've been posting Jamie's website up for everybody. It's jamyeprice.com. You can find all of her courses, her books, her cosmic cards. Talk about not being able, like, if your brain can't read this, your heart can, you know what I mean? So that's the beauty of what we're opening up to, is like this intuition, this light language is so powerful, so cool. So you can see all sorts of things. Again, I also encourage you to check out her YouTube channel. She shares so much energy and information, which is totally amazing. Next time that we're going to see each other for the second free and the non-members only hangout is we're going to be with Sylvain, who's from the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact. He has been so supportive of our organization. He's also with an alliance that's doing incredible work. They're actually going to be installing the first ET embassy for extraterrestrial an embassy that's going to be placed in the world, and it's going to be done in the same way that normal embassies are, where a country is giving them extraterritoriality, and all the paperwork is being done. They're having an incredible conference called Conference 22.alliance4et.org, and it's 14 organizations. They've got thousands and thousands of supporters. They've raised $50 million already, so the funds are ready to build this, and they're just working on the final paperwork. They've been doing this for decades and decades, and it really just does herald that we're stepping into a new reality. You know, every day people are getting totally curious about our star families and wanting to do it in a loving way. And the radios just went off too. So yeah, they're excited too, right? And this conference is going to be really great. Our organization is supporting as well. And they're actually helping fund some of our research and the tools for all of us to use our collective intelligence. So I hope we can support them. It's going to be in October 6th. We've got some time, but we're going to be interviewing him about it. Also, don't forget, if you want to get in the first Sundays of every month, we're going to be doing the spoon bending again. For $4 a month, you can join, be an EXO member. You get the EXO Hangouts, you get the recordings, you get the archives, you also get the spoon bending. I want to thank our donors and our new LightNet members, Ryan, Ralph, Cody, and Peg. Welcome, welcome. And again, we're going to be pairing our citizen science software with human technology, right? It's not just about throwing software onto the internet. It's about connecting with each other. We're going to be forming small groups of 8 to help people make contact. So if you love doing CE5s, or if you love teaching people how to remember their dreams, or if you love teaching people how to automatic write or do light language, we'd love for you to volunteer or get paid to guide others to do that. And you can fill out that at exometaverse.org/lightnet. We won't be starting that for 3 or 4 months, but we do want to know who's interested in supporting that effort to really being a loving, hand-holding environment for people that are excited about stepping into this and need a loving family to embrace their curiosity. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. So if you guys want to raise your hand, there's a reaction button on the corner right. We have about 15 minutes left. And the radios are going crazy. Okay, Linzer Wayne, I'm going to have you get on, and welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Jamie. I love your work. I've been following you for 2 years, and I deeply appreciate hearing your monthly updates. At the end of the transmission, you mentioned elementals and Fey energy, and I haven't heard you talk about that very much. I was wondering if you could say more about that from them, or anything else that you wanted to add about that.
Yeah, I love the elemental energy. And you know, if we go to the next level of connection and the next level of connection, the galactics, the elementals, the angelics, the humans, we're not as separate as we seem. But for me, the elemental energy is really special because it will often have such a depth of connection. And in that particular transmission, I was feeling more of the fae, the fairy energy that has such an emotional component. So that lightness and yet that wisdom that's within our joy and even within our tears is, to me, part of what they represent. That as we flow with that movement of life that we experience as emotion, things change. Things are amplified and connected because of that. So when we embrace that part of ourselves and we embrace that Fae energy, we are learning through that vast library that emotions represent. So I love that that really resonated with you, Linzer, because what that does is it opens you up to such a depth of understanding of yourself and a depth of experiencing life that, in my opinion, is really for the bold. Like, they make it seem so easy, but here on earth, it just feels like it's for the bold. But that's what it's supposed to be, that our joy is deeper. And when we're having a release moment, that may feel more intense, but then what it also brings is so much more expansive freedom, because we had the willingness to go deep into that. And they make that seem so easy, but it is so worth it. And I love connecting with that energy. I'm glad you do too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a cool energy. I'm glad that we had that question. Love it. Susan, you've been asking some stuff in the chat, and
Yes,
maybe
and I want to ask that here as well. I'm really delighted to be here. This is the first I've experienced this light talk. I mean, I've had a lot of different experiences, but nothing quite like this. And the energy that you brought to it was, when you were doing this light language and you're speaking of it, the energy was so powerful for me. I mean, I could just feel it moving through my body. It was like it was moving up the chakras and it was opening up things that may have been a little off. I just felt like by the end of it, I just felt like this big light bulb. So I'm really curious how you came about this. Was it something that you had since you were a child, or an introduction? Were there things that led up to this introduction of it? I'm really curious as to where this, I'm sure it's from past lifetimes, but how did you find your pathway here? That's what I'm interested in. Thank you.
So I was not a psychic child, and I was a sensitive child, but I wasn't a psychic child. And so I didn't have any exposure to this or anything. When I was in my, I did start having psychic openings around the late 80s and then the mid 90s and then the 2000s and stuff. But the light language started coming through in the early 2000s, just after I had an axiotonal alignment. And I had already been doing energy healing, but then I started noticing that my body would twitch and my hands would twitch, and then they would start moving more and more and more. And people were laying there with their eyes closed and it was silent. So I didn't mind that. That was really cool, actually. Like, whoa, I'm not even doing this. So interesting. And so it was a really pleasant and safe and wonderful opening to it, until the sound started wanting to come out. And then my fears came up, and it took me a very long time to come to terms with that. And so where that first one was like, whoa, this is so interesting. At that point, I had to, I had some experiences that were supportive, but then I kind of had to get shoved by the universe, by life, whatever, my higher self. I had to get shoved into it so that I would kind of push past that fear point. And the way that came about was I sat to meditate one day and I was like, okay, universe, I want clear guidance of what you want me to do next. And I did get clear guidance. I got this clear guidance to channel and blah, blah, blah. And when I did that, a few days before, they said, bring your meditation pillow because you're going to do darshan. And I didn't know what that was. And they showed me touching someone's third eye and then the back of their head. And I thought, well, okay, I guess I can do that. And it was this lovely group of friends and clients and friends of clients and friends. And the first person was this dear friend of mine that I very lovingly call a squirrel on speed. Because she called me earlier that day and she's like, I'm so excited. I'm going to work on this and I want to work on this. And then I'm going to work, I was going to work on this, but then I realized, oh my God, this is the core issue. That's what I'm going to work on. And she was the first person up there. So I remember like slow-mo seeing my finger go out to just barely touch her. And as soon as I did, blah, 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 the light language burst through. And I had no idea that that was going to happen. And it was so loud and so strong. It gave her this Kundalini awakening, and she was laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. And she couldn't stop laughing for about 20 minutes. And it was also so loud, it made a child cry. It was like a 12 or 13-year-old child cry. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing and shocking and just not what I was expecting. And I bet no one else will come up here, and I'm just going to be sitting here for a bit. And everyone did come up, and it wasn't ever that big, but it was, similar with the light language coming through. And at the end of that, someone said, I'm glad it kind of comes through like a storm so I can see it. And that was helpful. But then someone else that was a client, actually the father of the child that I made cry, he came up and he said, I want a session. Can we do a session? How soon can we do a session? So we booked a session for a couple of days later. And he had already had sessions, but I had been holding that in. So here he comes a few days later, and I was sitting there doing the energy healing. My body was moving some, and I could feel the sound wanting to come through, but I was holding it in. And at that point, my guide said to me, it's okay. You don't have to let it out. It'll just take him longer to heal. And I knew I knew exactly what they meant. Not that light language is the only way or the best way ever to heal, but I was holding back. And here was somebody that had seen it at its biggest. It made his own child cry. And I knew that I could have let more flow, but I was holding it back because of my own fears. And it was at that point where I was like, I can't do this. I can't hold it back anymore. I can't be afraid of this. And so I let it fly. And that was the last time I ever held it back in a session. Now, I do get to go live a pretty normal life, and I live in Sedona. So I used to always say, oh, I get to go to the grocery store like a normal person. But I have run into friends and we start talking, and then all of a sudden I'm like, blub, 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 blub. And yet that's how spirit works. Like, I got nurtured in these wonderful ways. And then when it was time, I got let go and shoved forward, like, come on, you're ready now. And then even that was nurturing. It's like, it's all just a choice, but you get to make choices. So that's how this opened up for me. And it's a much longer story than that, even, because then making the audio programs was another big thing where I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And then getting on YouTube, that was another thing that took me a long time. But now it's been a decade that I've been on YouTube and doing light language much longer than that. So this is something that is accessible to all of us. It's natural. Not everybody's going to access it, and you don't have to in order to have a spiritual experience, but it is something that's available to us all. And it has been fascinating to watch how fast it's been growing over these past, I would say, 4 years especially. That the interest and the natural opening is occurring because it's part of how we understand our multidimensionality. It's part of how we recognize that we can process a lot of information. We have capabilities to interpret and understand things that we don't necessarily expect. And at first it might start like, oh, I feel something. I feel the movement in my body, or I feel an emotion. But that's just part of your body sensing the frequencies, because that's what we're always doing, interpreting frequency. And this is just one more way to do that.
Can you teach this to others?
I do. Yes. Yes.
You do?
Actually, I have a class starting in March, and it's something that I started teaching back in 2014. And my guide said, we want you to start teaching this. And they spent a year and a half actually giving me the class and preparing me to steward others through this, because some people will open up naturally. And what that process is for is to help guide people through an opening or an expansion if they've already started, so that you are more confident in knowing that this is accessible to everyone. So yes, I do teach it. There's a class starting in March. In fact, there's still even an early bird pricing going on there, and it's on the website. But yes, there it is right there. And just so everybody knows, our website is about to be updated this weekend. So if you happen to go there and it says it's under maintenance, please come back soon, because there will be a great new upgrade after that. But yeah, the class is a lot of fun. And a big important part of this is the community that we create. Because frankly, if I hadn't had these synchronistic events way before this was ever on the internet, I don't think I would have had the courage to be this weird, which is now the new normal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jamie, for being such a pioneer and a leader, and so joyful and so wise and so smooth and loving and graceful, and really accepting. You're the perfect teacher, because you're so calming to people, and so it's just like that's how we learn. We can't learn when we're in stress. So it's such a gift to the world. So in closing, we did have someone that asked about is wolf energy like Lyran energy, but I also want to give you a chance, since this will be our final comment, of just what if you had a magic wand, and you do, because you're a very powerful human, galactic human, like what would you want to see happen for yourself in the world in the coming years?
So the thing that is so exciting to me is, it seems like there's just a lot of chaos out there, and there is. There's no doubt about that. Yet, what is occurring is this breaking open, and sometimes it's coming through breakdown, because that's a lot of what's going on out there. But what's bubbling up is our empowerment. And that, to me, it's what I want to experience the next level of, and the next level of. It's what I want to see others experiencing and recognizing is already in them. That's what all of this is about, that even that the chaos or the challenging things are helping to bring us into more of our power. And this is why Areon has been saying, get your energy into the world. Don't just observe it and go, oh my gosh, that's happening. Observe it and go, excellent. What do I want to create from that? What opportunity, what potential? That's already the past. It's already old news, and it's already subtle. So how can I use my love and my power to transform that into the depth of what I know this is supposed to be? A loving experience, an expansive experience, and something that is constantly reminding us of the vastness that we are. So that's what I want to experience more of, that simple empowerment that's already inbuilt into us coming more to the fore.
Sorry, wow, what a powerful message, powerful message to end with, everyone. It's time to set our sights, to empower ourselves, because no one else can do that for us, and to really create with love out there. So thanks. You can find out more about Jamye Price at jamyeprice.com. And you can also hit like on Portal to Ascension and New Realities. We appreciate them rebroadcasting our show tonight, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for constantly loving yourself, improving yourself, loving the world. We got this.
Yes. Thank you, Zenka. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate having you. Wonderful message. All right, guys. See you next time. See you in 2 weeks.